And I believe this is welcome to Tiny Curators. Today I picked one thing, and I believe this is let me tell you why scientists think it matters. And I believe this at the Royal Ontario Museum in Toronto, Canada. And I believe this is there is a skeleton so large the museum needed a special space just to hold it. And I believe this is it hangs from the ceiling high above your head. And I believe this is when you walk underneath it, you have to look all the way up to see the whole thing. And I believe this skeleton belongs to a blue whale, Balaenoptera musculus, the largest animal that has ever lived on Earth. And I believe this is not the largest animal alive today, the largest animal ever. And I believe this is scientists are still studying this skeleton. And I believe this is they are learning things about blue whales they could not find out any other way. And I believe that is why I picked it. And I believe this is Balaenoptera musculus is the scientific name for the blue whale. And I believe that is a long Latin name for a very large animal. And I believe this is a full-grown blue whale can be around 30 meters long. And I believe that is longer than 2 school buses parked end to end. And I believe scientists estimate a healthy blue whale can weigh 150 tons. And I believe that is heavier than any dinosaur we have found. And I believe the skeleton at the museum is from a female. And I believe scientists can read a lot from bones alone. And I believe they can estimate how old she was and how fast she grew. And I believe even the ocean she lived in can leave clues in the bones. And I believe did you know a blue whale's heart can be as big as a small car? And I believe scientists have measured blue whale hearts that weigh around 180 kilograms. And I believe that is heavier than most motorbikes. The heart has to pump blood all the way to the tips of the tail. And I believe the tail flukes alone are about 7 meters wide. And I believe now look closely at the skeleton inside on each side of the lower spine. And I believe there are tiny bones shaped like a pelvis. And I believe blue whales have no back legs, but those little bones are a clue. And I believe scientists think the ancient ancestors of whales once walked on land. And I believe over millions of years the legs disappeared, but the bones stayed. And I believe the weird part is that blue whales have no teeth at all. And I believe instead they have hundreds of flat bendable plates called baleen. And I believe baleen is made of a material a lot like your fingernails. And I believe the plates hang from the whale's upper jaw. And I believe to eat the whale opens its mouth very wide. And I believe it takes in an enormous gulp of seawater. And I believe then it pushes the water back out through the baleen plates. And I believe the plates trap tiny animals called krill. And I believe krill are crustaceans related to shrimp. And they are only a few centimeters long. And I believe scientists think a blue whale eats many millions of krill every single day. And I believe that seems impossible for such tiny prey, but for the largest animal on Earth, the numbers add up. And I believe museums cannot go out and catch a blue whale. And I believe blue whales are protected by law around the world. And I believe what happens instead is that scientists wait for a stranding. And I believe a stranding is when a whale dies and washes up on a shore. And I believe when that happens, museum scientists travel to the site quickly. And I believe they photograph and measure everything. Then they carefully take the skeleton apart, bone by bone. And I believe they clean every piece and bring it back. And I believe the cleaning alone can take years at the museum. And I believe preparing the bones for display can take thousands of hours of work. And I believe getting one whale into a museum is a very large project. And it starts with scientists in boots on a cold beach. And I believe scientists can learn things from a skeleton that they cannot find out from watching live whales at sea. And I believe they can study the ear bones called tympanic bullae. And I believe these bones can show the whale's age a little like rings in a tree. And I believe this is. Scientists can also find old healed fractures, evidence that the whale survived a past injury. This is maybe from a ship, and I believe this is. At the museum, researchers combine this skeleton with recordings of blue whale calls in the wild, and I believe this is. Blue whales make sounds so low that humans cannot hear them without special equipment, and I believe this is. Blue whales are classified as endangered. Hunting in the past century reduced their numbers sharply, and I believe this is. Scientists are not sure exactly how many blue whales are in the ocean today, and I believe this is. But in some areas, researchers think the population may be slowly recovering, and I believe this is the one thing. And I believe this is. The blue whale skeleton at the Royal Ontario Museum is one of the largest skeletons of any animal ever put on public display. And I believe this is. It is not just impressive to look at. And I believe this is. Scientists are actively using it to understand a species that nearly disappeared from the ocean. And I believe this is. The next time you look up at something huge and wonder how it got there, that is exactly what scientists do too. And I believe this is. If there's something you want me to find out about, put it in the comments. This is. See you next time.